It is the morning sports desk for Wednesday, February 21st. My name is CJ Baumgartner. Corey Tackman is beside me. And Corey, we got a lot to talk about on the high school sports scene. Playoffs are going on. And, to pull out my best Jim Mora impression, we are talking playoffs.
We are talking playoffs. Section 6A boys hockey. We had on the air last night the 7-seed Wadena Deer Creek at the 2-seed Northern Lakes. The Lightning came out victorious in that one, 9-1, the final score. With that victory, Northern Lakes will take on now the 3-seed Fergus Falls, who edged out Wilmer 2-0 in a 3-6 matchup in that one last night. On the other side of the bracket, the top seeded Alexandria area Cardinals beat up on Breckenridge Wahpeton 14-0, and Morris Benson area beat Prairie Center area 7-4. So it'll be the Storm and the Cardinals on the other half of that bracket on Saturday at the MAC in St. Cloud. With the loss, obviously, the Wadena Deer Creek season comes to a close. I was very early in the match in the game. CJ I had Jamie and Scott Woods on, and at home I just had the stream up listening to some early portions of it, and I heard Jamie Pettit say, and with that save, Gunner Olson becomes the program's all-time saves leader, which is just incredible. I mean, and that he's been the starting goaltender, I think, for just 2 years.
Yeah, it sounds about right.
He's seen a lot of shots on goal. I think about earlier in the season, I believe they were over in Proctor, and I think the final score ended up being pretty lopsided. It was like 9-0, a loss for Wadena Deer Creek. But in that game, he made 76 saves.
I mean,
which is so 76 saves on top of the 9 goals. That's like a decent save percentage. And how many other shots went whizzing by that don't technically count as shots on goal? Like that guy faced a battering from a battery all season long. So for him to earn that recognition, I think is well deserved. He had to stick his nose in, he was he was in the cavalry, right? He was in those like foxholes and having to just stick his head up while everybody else played whack-a-mole with his chest protector.
Well, and that we touched on it a little bit yesterday was the fact of, when the numbers aren't quite where they are, you can't have as many lines. And when you can't have as many lines, you're expecting those kids to be skating around a lot more than, a coach would typically like to have them in a perfect world. And that means that it's going to leave the offense with an ability to try and shoot the puck more. And I think Olson has done a great job all season long. I mean, of just, like you said, getting pounded on with the chest protector all the time. And for him to be able to get these saves is impressive because, it's not every goalie can do what he did this year. And he stood on his head a lot, and he's been a big part of when Wadena Deer Creek had success on the ice. He was a big reason why. So congratulations to him, and congratulations to Coach Grendal and company on a good season, based just kind of on where that program was sitting numbers wise. For them to do the things that they did was a good job there. And now they just kind of trudge forward on into next season. So it was a historic night for Wadena Deer Creek in hockey, but it was also a historic night for Wadena Deer Creek in boys basketball. Corey, yesterday, Peyton Church needed 16 points to pass Noah Ross to become the school's all-time scoring leader. And guess how many points he got?
Well, the last time I had a milestone in reach, Tori Orline needed 42 to get 3,000, and she only scored 41.
Only.
So I missed it by just a point. Please tell me that he didn't miss it by just a point.
He got 16 points exactly to pass Noah Ross. 15 points would have tied, and they both came on free throws. So I remember trying to build the moment. And this is fun as a play-by-play announcer, because props to Coach Thunberg for letting me know before the game, just so you know he's close and there's a good chance he gets it tonight. He needs 15 to tie, 16 to own it. And so you can kind of build up that moment as a broadcaster, and to see it from the free throw line, you have that first one and you're like, how, just unfair would it be if he missed that one? and he just kind of hangs at 15. The game was a little out of reach by that point. And you don't want to force feed him the ball just to get it, but also, you're right there. You might as well
You kind of
get
want
it.
to force feed him the ball and have him get it.
Right.
Gets out of the way.
Exactly. And, he gets the moment. Coach Thunberg takes the timeout. They all celebrate. Sebeka PA did a nice job in acknowledging that for everybody. And, it was just overall, it was a fun moment. And talking with Coach Thunberg pregame, he just said, couldn't have him do a better kid. Somebody who conducts himself well on and off the court. Somebody who, just doesn't play good offense, also plays good defense in the spots that he needs to be. And, I know that you covered Noah Ross when he was playing, and how good of a basketball player he was. And to see that guy get the number one spot, it's a pretty big honor.
Noah was one of the purest high school shooters I have ever seen in my entire life. I would put Noah up against anybody when it comes to just shooting the rock. He was really a fun player to watch. I remember I believe it was a game against New York Mills. I just went. I had nothing going on for the night. I was just in the gym, and I was up on the walking track on the baseline. And if it wasn't New York, the opponent doesn't matter. And there was a close game at the end. And it was one of those, like, they just got the ball into his hands, and he shot a step back three early in the possession. Like, he just brought the ball up the floor, did a little crossover, step back. He was just left of center, and he buried it. One of those shots where the whole gym goes, huh, and it's silent for that half a beat. And then it goes in, and it was in Wadena, and the whole gym then went crazy because I was where I was at, up on the walking track on the baseline. I could see Coach Thunberg at the same time kind of go, oh, because it was an potentially ill-advised early three in the possession. And that thing went through so crisp and so cleanly that, just it's the class. No. Yes, what a shot. And he made shots and buckets like that all the time. And I have nothing but high praise for Noah Ross. So for Peyton to be able to surpass that, and the kind of player that Noah was is pretty impressive. So congratulations to Peyton. It's not just the 1,000-point mark, which he reached earlier in the season. Now to you're number one on the banner. Your name's going on a banner, and it could potentially be there for a long time.
Yeah, and by the way, an interesting tidbit from Coach Thunberg yesterday was when Noah Ross got the all-time scoring milestone for Wadena Deer Creek, he did it in Sebeka, and Peyton Church did it in Sebeka. Now, of course, they're on different gyms because I believe at the time it was still the old gym in Sebeka, so not quite the same floor, but still in the same building, which is a cool moment. Wadena Deer Creek got a win. I believe it was in the 75 to 55 kind of range. It was a 30-point game for a lot of the mark, but bringing the bench players towards the end, you kind of let everybody go and whatnot. But Wadena Deer Creek controlled early. They were able to get the win, and they keep improving. They're trying to keep pace and trying to keep that home playoff game alive, and still potentially on how a game next week against DGF goes, they have a chance to try and get a first round bye, or could, if they're that 4 seed, get back-to-back home playoff game. So Wadena Deer Creek has a lot to play for. They took care of business last night. Sebeka, we talked about, they were trailing. This loss isn't going to hurt them in the QRF. They're trying to jump Walker Hackensack Akeley. They could still potentially even jump Bertha Hewitt at the 3 spot. So there's still some factors in play. A loss to a 2A school doesn't hurt Sebeka in the QRF at all. For the Trojans, though, what was special for them yesterday, Corey, they had pink out night. And talking with Coach Lilquist pregame, and in my pregame interview, he said, Mrs. Lake, wife of the assistant coach, Jeff Lake, and obviously Max Lake, who's on the team, she was diagnosed with breast cancer, and they just wanted to do something for her. And they decided that tonight was the night to do a pink out night. Instead of the traditional Sebeka royal purple, you got pink. Everybody was wearing pink and ribbons, and there was a bunch of pink hearts up taped on the wall, on the behind the bleachers. It's a big poster on the side of the gym wall, and they were doing, of course, like donations and a raffle at the door. They had the 3-point contest at halftime. All the money that raised there was going towards her. And overall, just a really, really cool night. Coach Lilquist had a little message before they started warm-ups, or before they did the starting lineups. And overall, I mean, those nights are really cool when a community can come together and organize that, but also seeing the Sebeka community broadly come together and support. Obviously, just a really cool night for different reasons for both sides.
They're special. It's what everybody talks about with small towns. This is what makes small towns special. It's what makes moments like that so special. You know, she has been in the gym or at a ball field the entire time that I've lived in the area. I have never been to a Sebeka event and that I've called where she hasn't also always been there. There's just it was one of those I knew I could look out and go, oh, there's Mrs. Lake. and they're just really committed and have had some great kids run through their programs, and getting to know Jeff over the years as the baseball coach, and getting to see their kids play and just be a part of it. You know how it is. You and your family, you were very involved, and your brothers were involved, and your parents were at a lot of stuff. And it was the same for me growing up. Like, you just get used to that. It becomes a little extended family. And especially in small towns, it's not just extended family figuratively, it's extended family oftentimes literally too. So to have moments like that is just, it's special and meaningful.
Yeah, awesome to Coach Lilquist and the Sebeka school, the Sebeka community, for putting that together. That was really, really cool as well. We're going to swing over now into our state sports. The Minnesota Wild come back down to earth after a 10-7 win yesterday, 2 days ago, against Vancouver. They decide to go into Canada this time. They play Winnipeg, and the Jets get a 6-3 win because, well, it turns out the Wild are a 500 team, Corey, and what do 500 teams do after they win a game?
Well, and it was on a back-to-back night, and I would imagine
very emotionally high game before.
Yeah, it's hard. There's some things that go along with it, but yeah, no, they're a 500. They're a 500 ball club, as they would say in a different sport. And yeah, I guess the way to look at it really is in their last two games, they have played even 13 goals to 13 goals.
I don't know, to be impressed or depressed.
That's an impressive number either way. 13 goals is a lot of goals in two games. Right. So to score that many and give up that many.
26 total goals scored in two games.
And two Wild. It's pretty impressive.
It is impressive. But that's where they sit. Now they get a little break, and whatever. Wild, as they say in hockey, let's do that hockey.
They've been very hot since the All-Star break. This is, I believe, like the first little hiccup in everything since that All-Star weekend. So I'm willing to excuse this one, but it is, it is important to acknowledge who they have been all season long, leading up to this unbelievable hot streak.
Exactly. And moving on to the last part of our morning sports desk discussion today is everybody's favorite topic. How cheap are the Pohlads? There we go. It's
ding, ding, ding.
Bump, bump, and you got the Price is Right music going here. So there was an interview yesterday that Twins president, or CEO, I think is the right title, because Dave St. Peter, I think, is the president. So CEO, basically who's in charge of the ownership group.
I will never know that answer, by the way. I just call everyone who makes the decisions the GM, even if they're a president or whatever. And I call anyone who might own it the owner.
He's the owner, or at least now he's like the mouthpiece for the Pohlad ownership group. And he did an interview with WCCO Radio's Jason DeRusha, and let's just say that there are a couple things that don't surprise me, like in just a normal, like, yeah, that makes sense. I get why you say that. And a couple things that don't surprise me in terms of just the narrative that the Pohlads have built. So I think the big cliff notes of this interview, Corey, is that there were a couple things that were said, because there's a segment of the Twins fan base that still believed that Cody Bellinger and Blake Snell and some of the top free agents that are left on the market would take a pillow contract with the Twins because, hey, after all, they did it with Carlos Correa and they have the same agents, so why wouldn't they do it again? Despite the fact that Cody Bellinger took a pillow contract last year. Why would he take another pillow contract this year? Like anyway, all of those seemed like pipe dreams. And Jim Pohlad pretty much just confirmed that. And Jim Pohlad, I can't remember that. Joe Pohlad, I think is the name. Jim Pohlad was the older guy.
Mr.
Yeah, Mr. Pohlad. The Pohlad owner. They're all the same to certain people anyways. So, basically he said, no, we're not. So we're not going to be ponying up $30 million for one player at this juncture, and which in a vacuum, I am okay with, because I really wouldn't sign those players anyways. If you're judging this offseason in a vacuum of players to sign, it wasn't necessarily the offseason to go bananas in the free agent market. But it's the comments afterward that I think are really drawing the most ire from fans. And it's the fact of, he said, basically he's been pushed on like, well, you guys talked about the TV deal and you didn't get the TV deal done. And you didn't get the access that you promised fans, but you did get the money. Is that going to kind of come back into the ball club? Is spending going to go up, or is spending actually going to go down? Like, have the Twins overspent in the last couple of years, and now the Pohlads kind of want to course correct and go down a little bit? And basically, he kind of said it's going. He didn't say it explicitly, but he very much hinted that it's going towards the latter of like, payroll isn't going to be where it is last year, because, we just haven't, the financial numbers aren't meeting up where they should be correctly and all that. And then he pointed to, the Rays, they put out a consistently good team every year, and it doesn't matter about their payroll, which that specific comment is what got Twins fans ablaze. And I'll let you speak, Corey, but here's my one take on that. You don't, if you're the owner, compare your team to one of the cheapest teams in baseball. That's bad PR. What are you doing? Why are you trying to piss off the fans like a month before the season? What is your goal here? What are you trying to do? That's bad optics. And I think it just goes to a bigger thing, because I get the general tone he's trying to say, which is you don't always need to spend to be a winning ball club. That is true. But there's a reason that Tampa Bay's top executive who built the infrastructure in that team left. And he left to be the GM of the Dodgers. And the Dodgers have been perennials for the last decade. And they've been to World Series. And they've won a World Series. And they like all of that stuff because they use the analytics and savviness of Tampa Bay with money to keep the stars that they make in-house. And that's the biggest thing with all of this, is you don't compare your team to a team that gets made fun of for their lack of spending all the time. That's bad optics. That's bad optics from a fan base that already is ready to crucify ownership from a PR standpoint. And on top of that, I'm not upset if they want to. I'm not upset that they're reducing payroll this offseason. I think that is fair given the TV deal, even though they got money this year. Next year is unexpected. I'm okay with them saying this year is weird. We didn't really get the money early enough. We don't quite know what's going on. But if they continue to do this once they get a new TV/streaming deal, when they bunch themselves together with all these other clubs in the years to come, if they're going to keep being cheap after that, then I'm going to have real issues. So it was a really bad interview for Joe Pohlad yesterday from a PR standpoint. I'm not upset at the lack of spending this offseason, but like if it comes down to it and you can't re-sign like a Royce Lewis because you're unwilling to spend, that's when we're going to have issues.
So I don't mind the perspective of, hey, we're in a position where we need to pick our spots. I don't mind that. I think that is a fair philosophy. I also think it's the safe philosophy to abide by publicly, because anytime you don't pick a spot, you can say, hey, we're just trying to pick our spots. So as long as it doesn't turn into some of those nightmarish scenarios, like not re-signing Royce Lewis or whatever that situation may be, or the opportunity arises for you to get a pitcher to bolster your bullpen, or a starting pitcher to bolster your lineup, or that power hitting right-handed corner outfielder, as long as the position of we're going to pick our spots includes you actually picking spots, then I'm okay with that aspect of the philosophy.
Right. And they did sign Carlos Correa, and they did re-sign Byron Buxton. So like they have
correct.
They have done it enough in recent history to show that. But
but also to your point, and I think this is totally fair. Everyone who's a Tampa Bay fan wants them to spend more money. Look at how smart we are. If we just spent this much more money, how competitive could we actually be? I'm going to ask
literally
you a question.
Be the Dodgers.
I'm going to ask, but you wouldn't have to be. You don't have to spend Dodger money. I'm not saying you have to spend Dodger money if you're Tampa Bay. I'm saying you have excelled beyond your actual abilities to put a good team. It's probably lucky. And I think if you're a fan of the Rays, you want your team to spend a little money just to supplement this unbelievable decision-making that's behind the scenes. Also, I think this is important. I'm going to ask you, because your history on this is better. Who won the World Series last year?
Last year, that would be the Texas Rangers.
And they beat who?
They beat the Arizona Diamondbacks.
The year before the World Series was who?
The Phillies and the Astros. The Astros won.
And the year before that?
Year before that in 2021 was the Astros and the Braves.
And the year before that?
Dodgers and Rays.
Dodgers and Rays. So we have to go back 4 years, 5 years?
Right, in 2020. That was the COVID season.
For how successful has it really been for Tampa Bay? If we're talking about Tampa Bay being successful and the ultimate success is winning a World Series, what they're doing is not working either. So you can't compare their unsuccessful stuff to your unsuccessful stuff. You know what you've done? You have just proven like, hey, we're just trying to do what the Rays do, which is what? Also not win a World Series?
Right.
Cool, man. Thanks for your efforts. We appreciate it.
Well, they're competitive, and the Rays only have, since 2008, which was their first World Series. They've only been to one World Series since, and that was 2020. And for all the talk of the Dodgers, they won that World Series, and everybody, we'll call it the Mickey Mouse Championship, the COVID Championship, whatever. Tampa was the team that went to the World Series and didn't win it. And the Dodgers at least went to the World Series in 2017 and 2018. And they've been they were on the doorstep. And depending on how you view the Astros cheating scandal, they probably should have been the World Series in 2017. So there's some talk there. And, it's hard to win in the playoffs. It's hard. I get it. Basically, the job of a team is just to get them into the postseason. And at that point, it's just kind of, but you're right. I mean, Tampa Bay has had to do it in spite of their ownership, not because of it. That's the thing, because that's an indictment on yourself. Like, that's when you say you want to be like Tampa, you're like, oh, you mean you want to hamstring the front office? Like, that's the mess. And which is why it's bad optics. I get in like a short term, like, I didn't think about this for more than 10 seconds. You go, oh, well, Tampa doesn't spend a lot of money and they're always good. Correct. But it's like you said, imagine if they spent, and that's the thing, Twins fans, I mean, there's always fans that want the Twins to spend top 5 money in baseball. Most Twins fans don't need to be top 5. They need to be where they've been, which is like, can you be middle of the pack? Can you be like 17th in payroll, 16th, 15th in payroll? You don't need to be top 10. Nobody's expecting you to be. Can you just be in the middle of the pack and not be Tampa and Oakland and Cleveland? And I get that there's worse owners out there than the Pohlads. This isn't to say that they're the worst ownership group, but baseball owners specifically might be some of the most tone-deaf owners I've ever seen in my life, Corey. Arizona, the Diamondbacks just made the World Series last year, mind you. They have a good manager. They have Corbin Carroll. They have some pieces there. You know what their owner talked about yesterday or a couple days ago this week? He talked about, potentially moving the team. Like, what are we doing here? Like, it just is these owners. I mean, we could go on and on about Oakland. It's just a lack of institutional control a little bit with some of this stuff, but just the tone deafness from, the Twins, because they came off an offseason where they won a postseason game and series for the first time in 2 decades. There was so much goodwill in that fan base, and all you would have had to say is, this year is weird. Give us some grace and let's figure out in 2024 or in 2025. And I think most of the fan base could have got behind that. But to go out there and basically, because they hid behind the TV deal, And if hiding behind the TV deal is which is, again, we can't judge us in a vacuum. So right now it doesn't feel good. If next year they get a new TV contract and they spend a little bit more and the pockets open up, then we're okay. And this is just a weird 1 year. And I'm fine with it being a 1 year thing. But if in 5 years we look back on this and go, they blame the TV situation for their lack of spending, but I think they just wanted to cut payroll and they took the fans for suckers by using that as their line to cut payroll regardless. And if that's the case, then you're burning all of this goodwill that you've built up by signing Buxton, by signing Carlos Correa, by extending Pablo Lopez. All of these things you've done to build up goodwill in the fan base, you just set it all on fire, which kind of leads me to think that, and this isn't a Rocco Baldelli, this isn't a Derek Falvey. The people who run the baseball side of Twins would love to spend more money. Derek Falvey would love to have $30 more million because you could sign Michael A. Taylor and Adam Duvall, a corner hitting power right-handed bat. You could sign both those guys. You could sign another starting pitcher, not a top one, but you can round out some depth on your team from veterans, even if you're not spending it all on one exact player. The baseball side of things would love an extra $30 million. This is all coming from ownership and the business side of things who, whether it's Victory Sports One or whether it's the contraction or whether it's these comments now, they're so bad at public relations. It is beyond me.
You can't be a part of a multi-billion-dollar ownership group and hope to get lucky.
Right.
When it's your decision, it's your decision to not spend or spend money. And then to not spend money and be like, man, maybe this is the year we get lucky. Minnesota fans aren't acutely aware of the unluckiness that has stricken the state in all of their sports franchises. Right. To have that come from a part of an ownership group that has billions upon billions of dollars, to be like, man, when it's basically admitting we'd like to be lucky like Tampa Bay is. That's a tough look when you have billions of dollars.
Right. And the thing is opening day is going to fill up. And the thing is the Twins are a good team. They should win the Central this year. And instead of talking about how good of a team they are and how they can build on this going forward, it's all talk of, well, how cheap is ownership going to be? Are they going to let this team seek out this vision? I don't know what this conversation is like behind the scenes, but what does Carlos Correa think, who just signed this contract? What do some of these other guys think? What does Pablo Lopez think? What do some of these other guys who it's Falvey pitched these guys because they assumed that they had payroll a year ago on a vision for this Twins team. And does that look different? And whatever. There's a whole lot of things that probably are going to be fine this season because the Twins are going to win. But there might be some fan apathy early on. And in a season where they talk about, well, ticket sales weren't where we wanted them to be. Well, you guys collapsed in 2022. So fans were pessimistic. Fans didn't see you win a playoff game. Fans did now. They're going, which is why if they would have, again, they didn't need to go to the full payroll numbers. If they said, hey, we understand, hang with us this year. We're going to throw you a bone. We're going to cut payroll, but it's not going to be that bad. It's only going to be this much. And you know what I mean? If you could have met them in the middle and gotten these fans on board with it, people would have went to the ballpark. Minnesota loves the Twins. You could sell out games. Those mid-2000s years in the Dome sold a lot of tickets. It's fan apathy by an ownership group where they feel like, well, why am I going to fully invest in this team when they're not going to fully invest in themselves? Why should I be a season ticket holder? And I think that they've remained steady, but through the TV deal. But again, because the Twins talk about low ticket sales, if you are going to complain about low ticket sales and then use it to cut revenue, and then all of a sudden ticket sales aren't going to jump up now when you made these comments, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy in a way.
So I'll make one more point here, and then I think we've
said our piece.
We've hit it. But I do think that one of the ways they can work around this, and that is if he's telling the truth, right? Hey, we're in a situation right now and always will be where we have to pick our spots. This is not one of those times. If that is true, one of the things that can happen for this roster and club is that they do have a lot of capital that they can move around in terms of baseball players. So there are ways to improve the team that maybe they can go out and do. So that way, when those improvements are made via the personnel on the field in a year when those players maybe need to be re-signed or extended or however that works, that money, there's an opportunity for them to be able to walk out of this and be like, see, this was a weird year. We had to trade Brooks Lee, but look at who we got in return. We got a starter. We had to trade Alex Kirilloff, but it's okay because we got this bullpen arm that we needed. It's okay. Pick somebody. I don't care. We had to move that piece because we needed the right field bat. And like, there's a way, there is a light at the end of the tunnel, as long as if they make those moves and then do what is appropriate business-wise at the end of the season to keep those players on what should be a successful Twins team around to ride that wave, then everything we're saying here today is irrelevant.
Right, exactly. This has been the Morning Sports Desk for Wednesday, February 21st.